Some people arrive in a new city carrying nothing but hope and a plan. Lily was one of those people. She had left California with everything she had, her skills, her savings, and a dream she had been carrying since she was 17 years old. A salon of her own. A space where women would walk in and leave feeling like themselves again. She named it Shades of Beauty, and the day she put that sign up, she felt like anything was possible. But New York doesn't welcome you. It waits to see if you're serious. The first week, she had 2 clients. The second week, she had 3. She told herself it was normal. Every business starts slow. She just needed time. But by the end of the 3rd week, the phone had stopped ringing altogether. She would open the salon every morning at 9. She would clean the mirrors until they were perfect. She would arrange the products, set up the chairs, and sit down. And wait. Most days, no one came. At night, she would come home and do the math. Rent, salon lease, supplies, food, utilities. She had calculated everything perfectly before she moved, but she hadn't calculated silence. She hadn't accounted for weeks with no clients. Her savings were moving faster than her income. She had enough for maybe 2 more months of full expenses, salon and apartment combined. After that, she would have to make a choice she didn't want to make. She called her mother one Thursday evening. She tried to sound normal. Her mother asked how the salon was going. Lily said it was going well. She said New York was beautiful. She said she was okay. And then she hung up and sat in the silence and realized she had not been okay in a while. It was a Tuesday night when it finally became too much. She had received the rent reminder from the building, due in 5 days. She opened her banking app and looked at the number for a long time. She had just enough for rent. But if she paid rent, she couldn't pay the salon lease. And if she lost the salon lease, everything she came here for was gone. She thought about California, about going back, about what people would say, about what she would have to say to herself, and something inside her just broke. She didn't cry loudly. She cried the way people do when they don't want anyone to hear, quietly, deeply, with everything. On the other side of the wall, Leo was still awake. He had been in front of his screen for 6 hours straight, debugging a back-end issue that had been giving him trouble for 2 days. He was the kind of person who didn't stop until the problem was solved. But then something made him stop. A sound, faint, almost nothing. But in the silence of that apartment, it was everything. He leaned back in his chair and listened more carefully. Someone was crying next door. He sat with it for a moment. He didn't know his neighbor, not really. He'd seen her once in the hallway, exchanged a polite nod. Nothing more. It wasn't his business. He told himself that. But the sound didn't stop. And Leo was not the kind of man who could hear someone hurting and do nothing. He wasn't sure what he would say. He wasn't sure she would even answer. But he knocked anyway. Lily heard it and froze. She wiped her face quickly, stood up, checked herself in the mirror. She almost didn't answer. But something made her open the door. There he was, her neighbor. Calm. Quiet. Like he wasn't sure what to say either. She looked at him. He looked at her. And for a second, neither of them spoke. "I just wanted to check if you were okay," he said. That was it. No rehearsed line, no explanation, just that. And something about the simplicity of it undid her all over again. She invited him in. Not because she was fully comfortable, but because standing in the doorway felt wrong. He sat down. She sat across from him, and neither of them pretended that everything was fine. "I heard you through the wall," he said. "I wasn't trying to pry. I just couldn't not come." She nodded slowly, and slowly she started to talk. She told him about the salon, about California, about how she had planned everything, about how New York had not planned back, about the numbers, the silence, the rent notice, all of it. Leo listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer solutions immediately. He just listened, and she talked for longer than she meant to. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at her and said, "You didn't fail. The city just hasn't found you yet." She looked at him like he had said something that cost him nothing to give but meant everything to receive. They ended up talking until almost midnight, about where they were from, about what brought them here, about what they wanted their lives to look like. At some point, she made tea. He didn't ask for it, but she made 2 cups anyway. She noticed he was easy to talk to in a way she hadn't expected from someone so composed. He noticed she was more real than people usually are with someone they just met. Neither of them said anything about what this was, but both of them felt it. He came back the next evening. This time, he had food, a small bag of takeout. He held it out like it was obvious. "I figured you probably haven't eaten," he said. She hadn't, and she let him in again. They ate at her kitchen table, and somewhere between the containers being opened, he said it. "I want to help you with the rent. 3 months. No conditions." Lily put her fork down. She was not someone who accepted things easily. She looked at him carefully, trying to find the catch, trying to find the performance. She found neither. "I don't even know you," she said. He nodded. "I know, but I know what struggling looks like, and I know what it costs someone to ask for help, so I'm offering so you don't have to ask." The silence after those words was different from all the other silences. He wasn't done. He slid his phone across the kitchen table toward her. "I build things online. I want to run Instagram ads for shades of beauty, targeted to women in your area, professionally." Lily looked at the phone, then at him. "Why?" she asked. He was quiet for a second, choosing his words carefully. "Because you built something real. You came here alone and built something real. That deserves a fighting chance." Lily didn't respond right away. She was doing all the math she normally did, calculating risk, calculating trust. And then, quietly, she said, "Okay." Leo went to work the next morning. He built the ad campaign carefully, targeting women aged 18 to 40 in New York, searching for hair care, beauty salons, and styling services. He designed the creatives. He wrote the copy. He set the budget efficiently. Then he sent Lily everything before he left for his regular job. The salon phone rang on a Friday morning at 10:17 a.m. Lily stared at it for a beat before picking up. The woman on the other end had seen the ad. She wanted to book a silk press for Thursday. Lily wrote it down, put the pen down, and stood there for a moment. By the following week, she had 7 bookings. The week after that, 12. December arrived, and with it, the festive energy of a city that needed to look beautiful for every party, every gathering, every end-of-year celebration. Lily had always known she was good at what she did, but there is something different about being good and being seen. Her clients started bringing their friends. Her Instagram page started growing. The salon that had been silent was now full of voices, laughter, and the sound of her doing exactly what she came to New York to do. She called her mother that evening. This time, she didn't have to pretend. She thought about Leo, not in a complicated way, just in the way you think about someone who showed up when you needed it most. She had not grown up expecting strangers to be kind like that. New York had surprised her, and so had the man next door. It was a Saturday evening. Leo knocked. She opened the door. He was dressed better than she'd seen him before. Nothing over the top, just clean, put together. "I was thinking," he said, "you should let me take you to dinner." Lily looked at him. "Is this a date?" she asked. He didn't flinch. "If you want it to be." She disappeared back inside for 20 minutes. When she came back, she was ready. They took his car through the New York night. The restaurant was warm and unhurried, the kind of place where people linger. They were seated at a corner table. She noticed he had made a reservation. He noticed she noticed. "You planned this," she said, amused. "I plan most things," he said simply, without apology. She smiled at that, because it was so completely him. They ordered. And then they began to talk. Really talk. She learned he was 25, that he grew up in Brooklyn, that he had put himself through school with scholarships and worked twice as hard to make sure failure wasn't an option, that he had been in New York his whole life, but lately wondered what it meant to stay somewhere out of habit versus out of choice. She told him she was 26, that California gave her warmth and creativity, but not the challenge she needed, that she wanted to build something she could point to and say, "That exists because of me." She told him about the clients she'd already started to love, their stories, their lives, the conversations that happen in the styling chair. Leo listened the way he always did, fully. They shared dessert without discussing it. It just arrived, and neither of them suggested separate. There are small moments in early connection that don't seem like much, but they are the moments that build the architecture of something. Shared dessert, comfortable silence in a car, making tea for a stranger, not leaving when you could have. These are the things love is actually built from. They drove home the way they had come. But it felt different. The city was the same. The lights were the same. But there was something new inside the car. Something unspoken, but not uncomfortable. Something still being decided by both of them. They didn't fill all the space with words, and that felt right. He walked her to her door. The hallway felt different from the first time he had stood in it and knocked. They stood outside her door. Neither moved immediately. She looked at him. He looked at her. "Thank you," she said. "For tonight. For everything." She reached forward and hugged him. Not a quick hug. The kind of hug that holds all the weight of the last few weeks. The struggle. The knock on the door. The late nights. The dinner. All of it. He held her like he understood exactly what the hug was for. She went inside. He went next door. She sat on the edge of her bed and looked at her hands and smiled. Not because everything was figured out, not because she knew where this was going, but because something had changed. And even if she couldn't name it yet, she could feel it. On the other side of the wall, Leo sat at the edge of his own bed and was quiet for a long time. He was not a man who moved fast. He was not a man who confused good feelings with good decisions, but he was also honest enough to know when something was different. And this was different. Outside, New York kept going. But in that building, in those two apartments separated by one thin wall, two people who had no reason to ever meet each other were lying awake, smiling at ceilings. And that is how the best stories start. Not with a dramatic moment, not with a single choice, but with a knock on a door that almost didn't happen. If you care about their story, stay tuned for the next episode.